Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm so excited to be with you here today. We have some Colorado fitness family in the house. Janelle Kleftis from Muay Thai Beyond Limits. We are going to introduce her and her extraordinary venture happening locally. But before we do, we are going to give a little love to our sponsors, Lux Neuro, offering neurofeedback and counseling where heart and mind align. For more information about what neurofeedback can do for you, listen to the neurofeedback stories of transformation in the middle of this podcast. Neurofeedback effectively treats everything from insomnia, anxiety, depression, trauma, ADHD, and much more. Optimize your brain. So let's jump right in. We've got Janelle, and she's the founder of Muay Thai Beyond Limits. I'm just going to read their mission so we understand how incredibly special this is, and then we're going to jump right in. Their mission, it says, Muay Thai Beyond Limits is committed to making martial arts accessible to people with disabilities, creating an inclusive environment to bring health, fitness, and social benefits to those who desire to be a part of a martial arts family. Janelle, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Kristen.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump right in and talk about the business. And right before we got on the mic, I was telling Janelle, I'm like, it's wild. There's so many things around neurodivergent individuals and opportunities in the neurodivergent community are coming through my lane, and I'm not sure why, but I love it. Obviously, me personally, and then Turmeric and Tequila is here for in-depth conversation, and we talk about exposure, accessibility, diversity, inclusion. So I love when things are coming through. I try and stay on the trend-setting tip. So I feel like if I have not heard of it or I don't know a lot about it, it's something we absolutely have to talk about. So it's coming up for a reason. Janelle, why don't you tell us a little bit about your personal background, and then we'll get into all the exciting business stuff.
Yeah, of course. So personal background, I started Muay Thai about 10 years ago. I moved out to Thailand after college to teach English out there and planned to stay for 6 months, and then fell completely in love and was there for 3 years. And I saw my first fight in a parking lot and was like, that is so cool. And I'm already in my comfort zone, so let me try something else new. So once I found a really great gym with a family. They have a gym in like the basement of their house, and it was very fun. And I told them I wanted to compete, and eventually they got me my first fight, and my love for Muay Thai just kind of grew from there. And then in that time, I was also working with the community, people who are disabled, and that was always my job ever since, summers from high school. My summer job was working with adults with disabilities, and then it grew into preschool, and just I feel like I've done it all. My ADHD really brings me around.
There you go. Well, that's really cool that you saw a fight in a parking lot and you're like, I want to do that. Like that's
right.
I don't know that everybody has the guts to lean in, but that's pretty cool that now Turmeric and Tequila, you've merged these worlds of passion and what you're passionate about, and then your experience. So like passion and profession now has perfectly merged in to what is now your business. Before we get to that though, I'm curious though, I always want to know, like, tell me about like young Janelle, like how were you as a kid? Were you a competitive athlete? Like how were you?
Yeah. Taking back to young Janelle, I was basically the complete opposite. I was very into musical theater. I took voice lessons. My ADHD kind of kept me from doing well in school, to be honest, because I could never focus on the things I didn't care about. But yeah, I did musical theater starting at age 10. My first show was Annie. I was one of the orphans, and I just kept doing theater. And then I actually also loved, I was in a children's circus, which is very random.
Cool.
I learned to ride a unicycle and rode in a few parades in Canada and New York and all that.
Wow.
So yeah, I was a very different kid. I didn't do any sports. That's why Muay Thai is so special to me, because I wasn't into sports at all and was terrible at all other sports. And then I found Muay Thai, and I found like I found the place I fit in,
Oh, it's so huge. And if you listen to Turmeric and Tequila, know my background. My first longtime athlete, 3 younger brothers, played everything, got in the mix of all this stuff. But it was really about facilitating life skills through sports. School didn't really, I did school so I could compete and play at lacrosse and then played in college. But it wasn't really my through line or my motivator to, pay attention in class. I did it to compete. So sports and competing were everything to me. And learning, your social skills, your teamwork, everything. If it's not sports, even through musical theater, you guys are like a family. I mean, you perform together, you practice together. Like it's still like life skills through theater. So that sense of community, it sounds like, was there early on.
Yes, definitely. And I still love theater and I love to go support. And that sense of family and like everybody coming together, even though you have your own role to play, it matches perfectly with Muay Thai because it's the same thing in Muay Thai, like and other sports. You're on a team, but in Muay Thai, it's like a solo venture when you compete, but you also need your teammates there to help support you and help you train. So they're very similar and probably why I love them both so much. So
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you were kind of a community leader early on, like bringing people together or helping facilitate it. Was that kind of in the cards early of you bringing people together over a common denominator or just being a good helper? Like, were some of your adult characteristics there as a kiddo?
yeah, I think so. I think being a helper was, and I also felt like I was big on inclusion even as a kid. Like I was the musical theater nerd and the band nerd and all that. But I just felt like I wanted to know everybody. And, there were kids in my school who were deaf, and I loved learning the sign with them and being able to sign my name. And like, I just loved that inclusion piece and helping others be able to be a part of things.
Absolutely. Well, you learn so much when someone's so different from who you are, where you come from, or all those things. And it sounds like you were pretty comfortable making bold moves. Moving to Thailand is no joke. And teaching English. Did you speak the native language at all? Like, how did you manage that transition?
Yeah, that was a wild transition. I
Yeah.
still don't know how I just took that leap, but I just needed a change, and life had a lot had happened in life, and I was, the stereotypical. I want to go find myself, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to go somewhere that was so different from here. But it was like an adventure every day, and I didn't know the language, but I actually lived in a small town in Thailand called Surin, and so most of my friends that I made were Thai. So it was an incredible experience. I joined a band out there. I started teaching music lessons out there and then Muay Thai. So it was like a wild ride, very different
Oh,
from here.
I love it. Okay, well, and we were just talking about my friend Dave. He's probably I've talked about him probably another, and he's been on the podcast. So you guys will definitely have commonalities around music and
Mhm.
healing and therapies and all these things. But
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible because when you move somewhere and you start something you don't know the language or whatever, that's just like entrepreneurship. You can have a plan, a business, everything. You jump in and you
Mhm.
still don't really know the language or the landscape until you're in it for probably a few years, and you
Mhm.
continue to modify. So I always that's why we ask on Tequila. I'm like, tell me about your young self, and usually the stars are shining early on, like what you're going to do. We just don't know it until later, and we have to take the trip or do the therapy or have the breakthrough to find ourselves, quote unquote, and
Yeah.
and then it becomes clear. Do you feel like you had all of these skills as you're ready to start the business in your back pocket to just leap?
Oh my gosh. Not really, but I did have a great mentor, I would say. I took a job before starting the business with this martial arts school, and the owner was wonderful. And there were only three of us on the team, so it was a very small team. And I feel like she taught me a lot, and I learned a lot because we started that martial arts school from scratch, basically.
Okay.
So it was similar there. I learned a lot about sales and I learned a lot about like attending resource fairs and how to be out and about and not hiding behind the table kind of thing.
Mhm.
But still, every day is an adventure. And like, even today,
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
learned something brand new today. So I'm
Well,
like, that's good. Good to know.
it it's kinda like living in a different country or an unfamiliar space when you're an entrepreneurship. Because again, and especially as an early entrepreneur, you wear all the hats. I mean, I'm 20 plus years in the
Mhm.
game, and every single thing is new, and, it went from consulting to in-person marketing and to now it's podcasts, and so, like, we're constantly learning these new modalities, but just like in an athlete, like, your craft is never really done, and you're always even if you know it, you're always kinda sharpening it or getting around people that do it better than you, so you kind of
Mhm.
figure it out. But what a great way to stay in the mix and a great way
Mhm.
to model what you're teaching. Like you're teaching your humans and you're a leader in your community, whatever it is, and you're still learning and
Mhm.
you're still on that side so you understand the process.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. And I think honestly, like, I love the learning aspect of it. I feel like I get bored like easily if I'm not able to learn and grow. And so running a business is like you're endlessly learning and growing. There's never a break. So it's great. Like I love the challenge and like I'm taking ASL classes right now online and
Oh,
it's like now I get to learn ASL and it's just yeah, so much room for growth. So I love it.
Oh man, what a growth mindset. I love my people that are just so motivated to be alive and seek out the next adventure and see what's next.
Mhm.
There's really hard days, don't get me wrong, because you know, it can be really high and then really low. And you know, as an entrepreneur, we're kind of in on solo journeys. Even if you have a business partner, it's still like a really tight, you know, small group. So
Mhm.
you got to keep your good people around you, just like theater or athletics or whatever. Like you got to have the community.
Yeah,
Do you have
exactly.
do you have a good support system that you lean on for your own community and mental health?
Yeah, I feel like I do. I've got really good friends that support the business and have from day one. They're always sharing the posts and talking about us in the community. And then Orion is really supportive. He's my boyfriend. He's really great. But honestly, the biggest support system I found is just the community that works with the neurodivergent population, because they have been so welcoming from day one. Like the second I posted about the business on Facebook, I got all these emails from
Yeah.
Pasco, and they were like, "Come to our networking." And the networking hour with them is just like, everyone knows you, and everyone wants to connect everyone so that you can grow. So
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
really great community, one I've never really found before, I would say.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, you know, when the stars align and you kind of have these moments in life where you're figured out and you finally get on path. And if any of my young humans are like, I don't really have it figured out that are listening and they're like, I don't know what I want to do, but I feel a pull going in a direction.
Mhm.
That's how I felt. You know, so what you're going to do might not be a thing yet. You know, like the conversation,
Mhm.
it's not that what you're doing is right or wrong or whatever. You know, podcasting wasn't a thing when I was a kiddo. And so sometimes it takes some time to like develop, get ready, and then the thing becomes a thing, and then you're right on time for you to be part of that thing. Do you feel like that's with you and what you're doing right now?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think, it's always like you're about to graduate high school. What do you want to be when you grow up? Where are you going to go? And like, I went to college for music education, and the education part I took, but I've taken a very long, twisty road to get where I am now. And like, I couldn't be happier. And I think
Agree.
you just got to let life take you places, and you never know where you're going to end up. So I just think being flexible is like so key
Oh,
in life.
man. Amen.
So,
Yeah, because we really
yeah.
do control so little, and this we talk about this all the time on the
Mhm.
podcast. But you gotta show up. You got to be intentional. You got to be clear on what you want, even if it's not
Yeah.
specifics. You got to be heading in a direction, and you got to let go just enough and have a little bit of faith. God, universe, Madonna. I'm a big Madonna fan. Whatever you believe in, you got to
I
believe
love it.
that it's right there.
Yeah, and then it's gonna work out, like, days ebb and flow, like, there's a good day and then a really bad day, and lately, it's like there's good and bad mixed into one day, but yeah, you have to have faith that everything's gonna turn out okay, and growth isn't linear, so I'm like, "That's okay if we're ebbing and flowing, we're still growing," so
To Totally. And something that's special about like podcasting or your business, you get to see the impact in front of you. Like immediately, you get to see how you
Mhm.
touch people's lives and
Yeah.
change, their trajectory in a class or in maybe a few months of classes. I mean, it's all right here. So I'm assuming
Mhm.
even on your darkest days, you see these moments of just brilliance.
Yes, oh, definitely, and I love seeing when something clicks, or,
Yeah.
like, hearing a parent comment about their kid doing something they couldn't do 3 months ago, and I love seeing the progress, and, seeing the joy on their faces too, and their confidence grow. Yeah, it's such a visual, like, the goals are so achievable and visual that I see them every time I teach classes,
I,
so it doesn't
I
feel like work, that's for sure.
For sure. I love it so much. And if you're listening, you're like, I don't, my kid's not neurodivergent, or I don't know if I always tell like my parents or like my young humans that are seeking something out, go get a part of something. Go be part of a community,
Mhm.
music, fitness, I don't know, recycling, sewing, whatever it might be. Like go get in the mix and then
Mhm.
find a good coach or leader that resonates with you and find a way to connect. And then that mutually serves, the student and the athlete or the student and the coach, whatever it might be. And
Mhm.
I think that's kind of what keeps everyone's process moving.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's so important, and it's so true. It's not just for the student or the kid either. Like, I'm learning so much from these kids in my classes.
Yeah.
They teach me things about just like how I can be more flexible and adapt, and then they teach me things about technology, and I'm like, well, I didn't know. I have no idea what a Raspberry Pi is, but like, thank you for teaching me. So,
It's
like,
it's so
you gotta
real.
let them teach you, right? Like, they're
Uh,
smart. They have things to teach you as well. So.
Absolutely. Well, the student becomes a teacher. Plus, I mean, every young human lives in a different world than a grown human. Like we just
Mhm.
have totally different
Yeah.
perspective and experience. So
Yeah.
we can always learn from one another. It's pretty wild.
Mhm. Yeah, it really is, but it's so
Yeah.
beneficial, and I love everything about it, so
Absolutely. Well, so if people are listening, they're not quite sure, can you explain what the neurodivergent community is or what being neurodivergent is in simple terms? I know there's a couple running definitions and we've got a lot going on in 2024, but just to be clear.
I know, honestly, it's really hard for me to even put it into a definition. I
Yeah.
think just everybody is so different and has different ways they learn, and their brain is wired a little bit differently sometimes. So I like to think that people who are neurodivergent might, be people with autism or people who have ADHD and encompass all of that. Basically, anybody that is special and has, unique needs and I don't know, unique strengths as well. It's a big one.
Yes. And that, well, yeah, because I'm always researching and looking and figuring it out or trying to in some capacity. And I'm like, God, this, everybody has something that's a little bit different than someone else. Like we all learn differently. I was never a great reader
Mhm.
and I'm probably undiagnosed something. I wouldn't be surprised. But,
Yeah.
again, my through my through line was sports and fitness, but I would, read a book and then read it again or reread paragraphs or, we all have
Mhm.
things where we just, we're more visual, we're more this. So I just love any
Mhm.
general awareness of points of difference. And then
Mhm.
I absolutely love the little idiosyncrasies. Society might perceive them as negative or positive or whatever, but the little things that make us
Mhm.
us. It might not even be learning, but it might
Yeah.
be I like when I was a kid, I always had like I took my napkins and I would always shove them under my leg. So anytime like I
Oh,
didn't have a napkin, my mom's like, I know they're under your leg. Like so like the weirdest things that don't make sense, but it's like
yeah.
just little things that make you
Mhm.
you are
Okay.
pretty extraordinary.
Right? Oh, I totally agree. I mean, everyone's got their little things and, very specific things. I love the napkins. That's hilarious. And
It's
that is very unique. And I used to have to do jumping jacks in between like classes, and especially when we would go to see a theater performance, my mom used to have to take me out into the lobby in the middle of it. Not even intermission, but just in the middle because I
okay.
couldn't sit still. So that was my little thing. Like I'm still like that. I don't sit very well. So
Well, I think you're using the energy or whatever it is in a positive fashion to go explore and learn and stay in it and keep evolving. I think, sometimes again, what can be so like society perceiving something negative, it's actually quite a gift depending on who you are and how you
Mhm.
utilize it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think everybody has a gift. Like I think people with ADHD, they might like switch like things they're doing so frequently, but also once you find something you're passionate about, I feel like you really hyper fixated on it, and it could be viewed as negative, but I also think it's great because you learn so much about that thing you're so interested in. Which is
Absolutely.
how I got to where I am with Muay Thai. So, you
You gotta
know.
go full in. Well, that's the joke about, turmeric and tequila. It's a lighthearted take. People are like, "Is it about food? Is it about drinking?" I'm like, "No, neither." It's, it's the lighthearted take that seemingly opposing things can harmoniously coexist, and
Mhm.
that space between is graceful disruption. People are like, "Well, is it about balance?" I'm like, "Well, sure. That's you got to kind of find that in between." The reality is, there's not really much balance in this world. Like you're kind of in or you're kind of out.
Yeah.
You're never really balancing anything. There's always the teeter is always going,
Mhm.
too much to one
One
side.
way.
So it's
Yeah,
it's really just about that
definitely.
grace piece of being okay with, doing the best you can.
Yes, exactly. That is key, and I think that's key for business owners too, is like, you might be really frustrated someday, but just know you're giving it your all, whether your all is like 20% that day or 90%, like every day is different. So, yeah, the
Absolutely.
teeter-totter is forever there with how tired I am or how much I have to do and how much I can give, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think what always, being a lifelong athlete, my favorite coaches are the ones that, resonated with me the most, were able to customize their approach with each athlete. I was, an athlete that I would give 100%, I bled it. I bleed the brand. That's what I do in my marketing. Like I'm 100% in or I'm 100% out. Like it's a fit or it's not. And the coaches that knew me knew how to coach me and work with me and, help me facilitate, conversation as a leader and do this, but they could customize it. And I think that's the same
Mhm.
thing, particularly I would assume with the neurodivergent community where you get to know each individual human and then you can customize your approach. Is that something you do on the regular with every student?
Yes, I feel like I do. And every student, like some are the visual learners, and some learn by literally hand over handing, and then they get it by themselves, or they need it written down to understand what they're doing. And then not only even that, but some of my students need that strict structure, and some need creative, like basically play back and forth. So it's more play based and child led activities. And then every kid just needs a certain relationship with you too.
Mhm.
Like most of my students really like when you talk to them like they're an adult or you treat them as an equal instead of talking to them like they're a kid and they don't know as much as you. So I always have to adapt to like, okay, this student needs more sarcasm and this student needs more child-led, and constantly adapting, which I love because everyone's unique, you know?
Absolutely. And that's so cool. You get to connect on so many different levels and be all the way in. Do you think that so tell us a little bit about Muay Thai if people don't know martial arts specifically, and why Muay Thai is different and why it's so special to you?
For sure. So Muay Thai is called the Art of Eight Limbs. And it's Thailand's martial art, obviously, since that's where I started it. So I was kind of learning it in its home base, which was really cool. So it's similar to kickboxing. Muay Thai people hate when you say that, but it's just the easiest way to say it. So we do boxing strikes, elbow strikes, which are my favorite. And then we also do knee strikes and kicking strikes. And there are so many benefits. I feel like you're constantly having to think ahead of your next move when you're sparring or training. You get to learn how to like cross your body, which is so important for kids, especially neurodivergent kids as well. And I think the discipline it takes to be able to train and keep training even when it gets hard is so huge, because it will get hard and it'll take years to even get kind of good at something. I'm 10 years in and I'm still not really exceptional at anything, I would say, which is okay because I'm forever learning, which I love. But it's a really incredible martial art, and I recommend watching fights and watching training. The reason I fell in love with it so much is because there's just so much respect in it. Like, you watch people fight in the ring for 3 or 5 rounds, and at the end they hug or they why and bow to each other. And it's just like you're friends, even though you just compete, like had a competition against each other. So I love that. That's what initially drew me to it.
That's beautiful. I mean, what solid life metaphors. Like, it's going to get hard. You got to stay in it. And, you are like perfect TNT because you're like, harmonious and teaching and loving children. Then like, yeah, elbow strikes. And I got into this because I saw a fight and I'm like, oh my God, come through. This is exactly like opposing things can harmoniously coexist. Like, this is the realest situation. And it's so important for our community to hear that, because we are so shoved into these boxes, our entire life. We're conditioned to exist in one space. And the reality is we wear all these different hats and we're multifaceted and you can love different things at once. So I love that you have this like beautiful juxtaposition of love and harmony, elbow strikes.
Hi there. This is Laura Mahoney from Lux Neuro, neurofeedback and counseling. We are bringing you stories of transformation each podcast. Imagine how we can transform your life. Insomnia. I had not been sleeping well for months. My energy level was low. Small tasks felt incredibly challenging. Lack of quality of sleep was obviously impacting my relationships, my ability to be the mom I wanted to be, and my ability to concentrate at work. I didn't feel like myself at all. At that time, I was in talk therapy, and it really didn't seem to be doing much for me. Fortunately, I found neurofeedback, specifically Laura Mahoney, and after a few sessions, I started to see some light at the end of the tunnel. I started sleeping better, and life felt more enjoyable. I began feeling like my energetic self again. I am almost at the end of my neurofeedback protocol, and I am so grateful for Lux Neuro, as they have literally changed my life. While neurofeedback is quite an investment of time and money, it has been well worth it. Thank you, Lux Neuro and Laura Mahoney. You've changed my life.
Right? Seriously. And that is Muay Thai, I feel like. It is funny. I'll be like teaching it to a 3-year-old and I'm like, teaching you quite an aggressive sport. But like, it's not though. It's like, you are aggressive when you compete, but also people that train Muay Thai are like the nicest people you'll ever meet normally. And they're like the most peaceful too. Like, people that train martial arts, it's the same thing. It's like you train martial arts and you know how to fight, but you also know that you don't need to use it. So another like harmonious balance there that I love.
Absolutely. So well said. Yeah. And it's about respect and awareness and kindness. And there's like rules to the engagement. So no, I think it's all such, again, wonderful metaphors. And if you're a kid and you're young with any abilities, you don't want to hear about all the schooling of that. You're like, what do we do? Elbow strikes, this and that. But then weaved within that are the larger life skills of, it's going to get hard. You work with your teammates. If you're going to engage, you bow at the end, and this is a mutually respectful situation. It's really cool.
Definitely. Yeah, it is so cool. And there's a lot of schools do like mat chats, and we do that as well. And we always teach like the sign. So we'll talk about like strength and like sign for strength is strong, right? So we'll
Okay.
teach the kids the sign, and then you get to incorporate that into the class and let them be a part of the discussion. And it's so great for kids to learn all those like skills that will take them further in life, while building that confidence and those skills directly through Muay Thai or martial arts.
Absolutely. And I love too, this was great for me. As a kid, I wasn't big on authority. I kind of was like a very independent human. And so like, authority coming from my like school teachers or my parents, whatever, but my coaches, it was a different point of authority. And that was always good for me to have that, guidance and mentor of someone that was kind of in the game with me versus someone just telling me what to do. Like I'm a police officer, I'm an adult, blah, blah, blah. It was
Yeah.
just different. Do you feel like being that coach as a point of authority is totally different than any other point of authority in your students' lives?
Yeah, I really do. And I think it's great to like build that relationship and be somebody they can trust. I think that's really important for kids, especially kids that are like getting into middle school or high school. Like it can be a tough transition for them.
Yeah.
And there's certain kiddos that I think it is even more important for, kind of depending on diagnosis, but like kiddos with pathological demand avoidance or pervasive drive for autonomy is the more neuro affirming term. But they basically everything you do has to start with that relationship, and they have to trust you and respect you before you can even really do anything with them. So I love that, especially in building that relationship. It's so unique and it's so new to me. So I really love it. And I can't wait to grow that and work with more kiddos with PDA so I can really grow myself and build those strong relationships.
That's extraordinary. Well, that's a perfect transition here. So tell me a little bit like, there's a traditional Muay Thai training studio, and you've touched on this a little bit already,
Mhm.
but what is specifically different about you guys, like in the daily routine or your approach? What makes you, special and stand out from a more general traditional Muay Thai training facility?
Yeah, definitely. So we make a lot of adaptations to make us as accessible as possible for people of all abilities, people with intellectual, developmental, and physical disabilities. We do the spaces I rent from have dimmable lighting, so that way we can adjust the lighting to fit everyone's needs. I have a student who wears sunglasses every class, even though it's dimmable lighting, because he's so sensitive to light. We also do a whiteboard schedule structure for our group classes there. Lots of kids thrive on structure and knowing what's coming next and knowing how close they are to the end of something so they can feel kept in the loop and prepared. We also are flexible with attire, so they can wear anything they want to train, shoes on, shoes off, like I don't care. Um, we have a sensory corner with fidgets, so the kids can we take sensory breaks so they can build those social interactions, and also just so they can kind of regulate their systems if they need. And then we also do heavy work every class, which is basically like push or pull activities. A big one is slamming a medicine ball on the ground. Everybody loves that. It is the biggest hit. They don't really get told they can throw things often, so they
Yes.
enjoy it. And it's really great for them to kind of regulate their emotions and center themselves. And that can be really difficult for kiddos that have autism or ADHD. Just you get dysregulated and it's hard to find your way back. So those help a lot. So those are kind of general ways we adapt. And then my biggest thing is just being flexible because every kid needs something different.
Yeah.
So I try to adapt to meet every unique need as best I can as well.
That's beautiful. All of every human kind of needs some piece of this and some human in their life that's adaptable to what they need at that moment. Just generally speaking, it's this is great intel for just human communication and acceptance and exposure in general. There's such,
Yeah.
bigger, heavier like undertones they're such an important part of the piece. I do want to touch on, for our families, because the neurodivergent community obviously has always been there. Navigating it though, I
Mhm.
have so many close friends that have neurodivergent children, so I've had a front row seat to them trying to navigate different therapies and what are the answers, and it's still a building conversation, and it's hard to
Mhm.
connect within the community or find the right path for your kids specifically. Do you have any
Mhm.
recommendations if you're new to the neurodivergent community or you want to find a way in to step in and then find what's right for you and your family?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think case like if your child has a disability and you're with a case management agency, they are so great. They have a list of resources. Like we're listed on their list of resources on their website. So I think they're a really great place to start. Like even if you don't have a case manager, just look at like developmental pathways or Rocky Mountain Human Services, whichever is kind of in your county. And then also, like, I'll give a shout out to this one woman. She runs Navigating Disability Colorado, and her main whole goal is just to help families find caregivers and learn how to best use the Medicaid waiver and funding so that you can get the most. And she also knows like so many organizations out there. So those are great. And then my last thing I would say is attend the resource fairs. Like Autism Community Store hosts the Autism Resource Fair. I love everything about it. Like I've been 2 years in a row, and I wish she hosted it like every 3 months because it's so fun and everybody that is part of the community is there, and it's a great event to attend as a parent. See what resources are out there and learn more about how you can help your kid.
That's incredible. And that's what today, you always hear like to get by, whatever the end game is, it takes a village. Like you really need your people
Mhm.
around you, and you can't know everything all the time. So again, building, your community and your leaders, or being part of something where, other people are good at different things and you can help connect and streamline maybe someone else's process, I think is so significant. And also whether you're neurodivergent or not neurodivergent, you're a supporting family member or what have you, you're still in this
Mhm.
community, helping one another out in navigating this experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, even whether you know someone who is neurodivergent or not, like you should understand this community. And
Yes.
we all need to be more inclusive. Like, I wish we weren't necessary because everyone's like, I wish you were in Fort Collins. I
Yeah.
wish you were in Broomfield. And it was like, I wish that this was just everywhere and that everyone was just inclusive and everyone was flexible to meet the needs. So I think this kind of education and attending these events and like looking more into those case management agencies should be for everyone because everyone should know how to be more inclusive and know what's out there to kind of help.
Absolutely.
You never know.
Yeah. Well, the exposure and then understanding, if you work with anyone in the world, which is almost everybody, because unless your job is by yourself, influencer on TikTok alone
Yeah.
in a room, you're working with all kinds of different people. And, we always think it's us or something's wrong or something's right. Like whatever you're kind of experiencing, a lot of times there's just misunderstanding because we don't fully understand what one another come from or going through, how we communicate. It
Mhm.
could be culturally, it could be ability wise. There's so many things. So just kind of like you said, letting down the wall of judgment for a minute until you can maybe have
Mhm.
an additional conversation or seek a little more intel or have opportunity to further
Mhm.
understand. I always feel like a good step one
Yeah.
is just to pause for a second and
Mhm.
maybe understand that you don't understand quite yet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's so important to like know that you need to grow and definitely
Mhm.
pause and take a step back. And I've had to do that before. My first time working with a kid with PDA, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I was honest about it and was like,
Yeah.
I am not, we're not making this accessible for them. What can we change? Like, you have to be willing to change yourself and adapt. Like, the world is forever adapting, things are forever changing. So you have to be willing to as well, and also just believe that people are capable of anything, I think is
Yeah.
key. Because I've
Yes.
even had parents, I have certain students and they're like, well, how can they train? And I'm like, they can, like, you just got to believe it and figure out how to make it work. But like, that's why martial arts is for everybody. Like, you just got to find the way. That's all.
I
You
love
got to
it.
adapt. So,
Yeah. You find a way. Everybody's reachable. You just have to find a way to reach. And sometimes that's
yeah.
just time and log in some hours
Mhm.
and
Yes.
letting things kind of do their own thing. Again, life metaphors. Like this is applicable to all things in all of our
Right.
lives. It's kind of
It
wild.
is.
And I mean, tell me a little bit about your education in the community. I mean, it sounds like you've done it literally forever. And I know there's programs, the certifications and teachings, but just like an athlete, some of it's
Mhm.
like you just got to be in the mix and do reps as a leader and continue to evolve to really know what to
Mhm.
do. But did you have any sort of like formal training or programs or anything that you suggest for anyone that wants to get in on the teaching or coaching side?
Yeah, for teaching or coaching Muay Thai in particular, I think just like starting to learn yourself. Pretty much every gym I've been at has been willing, if you've been there a while, to let you coach and let you try teaching out, which is how I started. And that's where I knew I loved it. And I think teaching just really takes experience, like teaching Muay Thai. I think if you're looking to become like a teacher with kids, there are a lot of different bachelor's degrees you can take or like courses you can take. For me, I did study education in school, even though it was music. And so I learned to work with people of different ages. But another good way is to start as like a para if you want to get some experience working with people with disabilities. That's actually was my first real job in that community. And then it kind of grew from there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so here for the educational platforms. And again, so much is evolving so fast. You need to do that and just go get real life experience, get immersed yourself in the community, Muay Thai or neurodivergent or whatever it might be, and just start.
Yes, for sure. And I've got to say, like, at least for myself, I think experience taught me way more than any formal education did. Like,
Yeah.
but I'm a learner by doing. So I was like, I need to get out there. I need to work with these people and like I need to figure it out while I'm doing it.
Yes.
So yeah, I like to say the experience is key.
I'm with you. Well, as an athlete, you kind of get used to public failure. Like when you're on the field, like everyone's seeing you miss the ball or miss the elbow strike or whatever. Like it's kind of out there. So it's good practice to like, well, frick it. Like we're in it. Like let's just learn. So you get that experiential reps very early where it kind of limits or lessens the fear as you get older of just like, well, we've already done this a million times. So it's okay.
Right. Yeah. You got to be ready to fail. It is hard to fail. But yeah,
is.
definitely you're right. As an athlete, like you're constantly failing. I mean, you're not doing something right, or you mess up in a fight and you lose, or you miss I don't even play those sports, but like you miss the goal or whatever with the ball. Like,
Totally. Totally.
But yeah, and that's the same as a business owner. Like I feel like I'm constantly failing and learning and making mistakes and learning to fix them. And then things grow from there, So
Absolutely.
failure is key and failure is important.
Well, there's no other way really to evolve. You have to just continuously be graceful with yourself. And if you're an athlete or any sort of perfectionist or business owner, like, kind of like these mission driven type A humans, which we likely both are, it's hard to maintain the grace and the forgiveness and the acceptance of something being imperfect. And the reality is, again, like our young selves, dust the dirt off your knees, get up, get back at it, and we'll be a little bit better next rep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just got to get back up and try again is the thing. And I always tell kids, like, because I have a few kids that are perfectionists in the classes, and I'm like, well, perfect doesn't exist. Progress exists, and you can constantly be getting better, but perfect is not there. So I think it's important to understand that too.
Absolutely. This is such great stuff for you as a business owner. I mean, the kids really are the teachers in the game, keeping us all humble and in the mix because they know so much more than we do in all reality.
They do. Oh my gosh, seriously. Yeah, and they listen to everything and they like take it all in. Whereas I feel like adults, we start to get kind of stubborn and we're like, well, I already know that.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
well, as kids, they're like, I don't know, let me soak it all in,
That's why we become antiquated at some point. So that's what we'll teach the students right now and they'll just take over, which is totally fine. That's why we're here.
Right. Yeah. I know. I love to joke. I'm like, oh, well, you should teach today. You're doing better than me. Like, you know better than I do. It's really
oh my God. It's so real.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're pretty honest with yourself around kids because they'll definitely be honest with you. So
yes, they are the absolute truth. Well, is there anything else you want to tell us about Muay Thai Beyond Limits that I haven't asked you? It's such a special, I know you have a thriving community and you're very intentional about how you teach and train and coach. But is there anything else like the community should know about you guys that makes you special?
yeah, I think just what makes us special is that we want to work with everybody. So, like, we have students who are blind, fully blind, students who are visually impaired. We have students who have hypotonia, PANS. We have basically just like whatever, like, if you think you won't be accepted somewhere else or you don't feel like anywhere else will fit, come to us because we want it to fit. And we do offer small group and private lessons. So, that's really important for those parents that want the private or like right now for kiddos with that pervasive drive for autonomy. I'm like, let's do a private for now so you can take charge and we can really build that relationship. So yeah, I just think that like the flexibility of us is what I really like to promote and share. And that's also how I hire new employees. Like they have to be flexible and they have to show it. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing to take home about us. And we also work with ages 3 and up. So we basically do classes for everybody except for the babies.
Okay.
So that's us.
That's extraordinary. That's a lot of bases to cover. And yet I can also see how it all sort of fits together and it's just like this harmonious, wave pool that's just moving. Like and it's fluid and you just go with it and it works.
Constantly moving. Yeah. But I love it. And teaching classes, there's nothing better. I never feel like I work when I'm teaching the classes and getting to spend time with the students. So
yeah. I believe it. Well, so if people are listening. Well, actually, I did ask you this. I don't know if this is a weird question in 2024, but I'm so curious about, learning like you on visual. I'm like, can I come and just watch classes? Like, but if you don't have a kid in the class, is that like a weird thing?
I don't think so. I just want to check with parents first to make
Yeah.
sure they're
Okay.
okay with somebody watching. But I've had people come and watch.
Okay.
And then if anybody wants to come like try the program, we do a free one-on-one with me. So that way you could like try a mini class yourself and just get to experience what it's all about. So
That's
it's pretty
that's so
fun.
cool. Yeah, I'm just
But
so
watching is
curious.
a whole different story.
Yeah, well, so
It's very
just as, and
fun.
this might be a limited perspective, but just in CrossFit and seeing the adaptive space grow so much. I
Mhm.
mean, those are my favorite athletes to watch because it's just, I mean, it's absolutely magnificent how there's literally no excuse A to compete, but B, you just make
Mhm.
it work with what you have. And they do like really heavy lifts and extraordinary movements with exactly what they are. And again, it's just this really inspirational life
Yeah.
metaphor of like, you find a way and you do it. And those are just
Yeah.
my favorite athletes. So
I
I don't
love
know, maybe
that.
yeah, maybe at some point you can do like a YouTube live or something with consenting kiddos, just so the greater world can see like this is a thing and how it works and what's going
Right.
on. Because I'm assuming it's very different to see in real life.
Yeah, I feel like it is. Like my student who's fully blind, like when I hold pads for him, people will be like, "I don't know how he does it." And I'm like, "There are so many ways." And you'll see him like striking the pads and he said he wants to compete someday and I'm like, "This is awesome."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
unless you see it in person, like I can talk about it all day, but if you see him in action, you'll be blown away by his progress and everything that he can do, which is just what you should expect him to be able to do. It's just people have different views and it's that believing in people, believing there's no limits, which is why we're beyond limits.
But
So,
look at that organic branding right there. It is. It's
right.
widening the perspective. The irony is you don't need to widen the perspective of the athletes. It's the greater good where
Mhm.
we don't see because we don't it's not in our world. So, I mean, I'll put this in the
Right.
universe now. Perhaps you need a Netflix documentary where they come in and put it together. I'm a big documentary nerd and I
That'd
feel
be
like
so
that's
cool.
where I learn all my stuff. So maybe they'll come
I
in and
love
put
it.
it together.
Yeah, I would love that. I want to get the word out. And I'll just give a shout out. There's another woman doing very similar to what I do in California.
Okay.
It's Amanda's adaptive martial arts. And she was my mentor at the beginning. And I just want the whole world to know about all of us doing this
Hey.
work because it's very unique and it's very special. So,
Let's go.
yeah,
Yes.
we'll
Yeah. Well, like I said, wherever you land, on the ability spectrum, I think the things that we highlighted in this conversation are applicable to anyone and everyone, you know, on so many levels. So there's gems everywhere. Where do people
seriously.
find you? Handles, websites, anything, any point of communication where they can hit you up?
Of course. I would say I post best on Instagram. So I would check our Instagram. It's just under Muay Thai Beyond Limits. You'll see our logo, which is in sign language, MTBL. So that'll be on there. And then we also have a website that's muaythaibeyondlimits.com. I just updated it. I'm not very technological, but working on it. Those are probably the top two. We're also on Facebook. So I would just check us out on there. But I love to share about the students and everything that's going on with us on our Instagram. So definitely follow us there.
I love it. Yes. And that is like
Mhm.
before the Netflix documentary, I do think that is the good step one if you want to see and understand what's going on. You do a great job with social media. I don't know how you keep up with all of
Thank
it
you.
while custom coaching and teaching and business and then doing Instagram, which is a whole cardio situation in itself. So you get a gold star on all those things.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm impressed. I've kept up with it myself, but I actually find it kind of fun. So that might help. It gets my
Hey.
creative juices flowing.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
definitely that's where I post everything. I love it. And there's a lot of organizations that also work with the community that I follow and communicate with. So that's a great resource for parents too. They'll be able to find so many resources through our Instagram as well.
That's so awesome. Well, I'm excited to see this grow. You are absolutely in alignment with your purpose and your mission. I will be
Mhm.
0% surprised when everything moves in this, massive direction and you're helping facilitate not only a successful business, but understanding exposure and opportunity for our young people. And I think all those things collectively really move us towards positive impact in this world, which could not be more on time. So it's really
Mhm.
great to have you in my orbit and be inspired with what
Mhm.
you're doing and really and pursue the passion and the purpose all merged together. It's extraordinary.
Oh, well, thank you, Kristen. I really appreciate you having me, and you're doing great work as well, with
Yeah.
everything, KO Alliance and everything. And yeah, it's like living a dream come true. So can't complain.
There you go. There we go. And just to be clear, it's not all roses, my entrepreneurs out there and everything else. Like you got to pack a helmet and the elbow strikes because it gets real. But it is. You keep your good people in your mix. So if you're interested in the neurodivergent community, or you've got a kiddo that this might be a fit, please check out Janelle. I'll of course post all the links and all the points of information where you can find her, what she's doing, but it's really extraordinary. And like she said, the resources that are weaved within her social media and everything else, I think you do an incredible job of just helping streamline the whole process of getting in it or staying in it or understanding or being part of it. It's a really beautiful thing. So go check her out, and then we will catch you in the next podcast. Janelle, I did have to ask you, I almost forgot one last question. What is success to you?
I think success to me is just like seeing the impact that I'm having and like seeing the growth with my students. And I send out surveys to parents, and getting that positive feedback from them has been key. But yeah, I just want to make a difference in the world. My mom did as an occupational therapist, and I just want to be just like her. And I'm like, I want to make a difference and share inclusion. If more places become inclusive and more gyms, then I feel like everything is fabulous. And that's what success means.
Amen. No, so well said. And no surprise that all fit together. I mean, you're already doing it. So you're gonna have to put Netflix documentary in there. Like, let's go. We're gonna add on to the pile. But you're out here.
Thank you. I would love that.
Yes.
I watch Netflix all the time,
There we go. We're definitely consumers. But so go check Janelle out. It's definitely a thriving situation in Colorado. I had 3 different people tell me about you. So it's happening. Yeah, so go check her out, see what she's got going on. A special thank you to our sponsors, Lux Neuro, neurofeedback and counseling. Lux Neuro wants to meet you. If you're ready to transform your life, visit them at luxneuro.com to schedule a consultation, and we will see you on the next show. Thank you so much, Janelle. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.